Yehovah Eloheinu Svaot. Kadesh, Kadesh, Kadesh. Please fill me with the Ruach HaKodesh, that I may speak your written words with boldness to those who listen. I ask all these things in Yeshua HaMashiach's name. Amen. We'll start with the Shema. Listen and obey. Children of Yehovah, pay careful attention and respond. Yehovah is our power and authority. Yehovah works in unity with himself, and you shall act upon your love to Yehovah with your power and authority, with your thoughts in mind, with your entire body, and with all the muchness that you have. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Hand, behold. Nail, behold. Leviticus Chapter 11. Yehovah said to Moshe and Aaron, tell the people of Israel, these are the living creatures which you may eat among all the land animals. Any that has a separate hoof, which is completely divided and chews the cud, these animals you may eat. But you are not to eat those that only chew the cud or only have a separate hoof. For example, the camel, the coney, and the air are unclean for you, because they chew the cud but don't have a separate hoof. While the pig is unclean for you, because although it is a separate and completely divided hoof, it doesn't chew the cud. You are not to eat meat from these or touch their carcasses. They are unclean for you. All of these things that live in the water, you may eat these. Anything in the water that has fins and scales, whether in seas or in rivers, these you may eat. But everything in the seas and rivers without both fins and scales, of all the small water creatures and all the living creatures in the water, it is a detestable thing for you. Yes, these will be detestable for you. You are not to eat their meat, and you are to detest their carcasses. Whatever lacks fins and scales in the water is a detestable thing for you. The following creatures of the air are to be detestable for you. They are not to be eaten. They are a detestable thing. The eagle, the vulture, the osprey, the kite, the various kinds of buzzards, various kinds of ravens, the ostrich, the screech owl, the seagull, the various kinds of hawks, the little owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the horned owl, the pelican, the barn owl, the stork, the various kinds of herons, the hoopoe, and the bat. All winged swarming creatures that go on all fours are a detestable thing for you, except that of all winged swarm creatures that go on all fours, you may eat those who have joined legs above their feet, enabling them to jump off the ground. Specifically, of these you may eat the various kinds of locusts, grasshoppers, katydids, crickets. But other than that, all winged swarming creatures having 4 feet are a detestable thing for you. The following will make you unclean. Whoever touches the carcasses of them will be unclean until evening, and whoever picks up any part of their carcasses is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Every animal that has a separate but incompletely divided hoof, or that doesn't chew the cud, is unclean for you. Anyone who touches them will be unclean. Whatever goes on its paws among all animals that go on all fours is unclean for you. Whoever touches its carcasses will be unclean until evening. And whoever picks up its carcass is to wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. These are unclean for you. The following are unclean for you among the small creatures that swarm on the ground: the weasel, the mouse, the various kinds of lizards, the gecko, the land crocodile, the skink, the sand lizard, and the chameleon. These are unclean crawling creatures. Whoever touches them when they are dead will be unclean until evening. Anything on which one of them falls when dead will become unclean. Wooden utensils, articles of clothing, leather, sacking, any utensil used for work, it must be put in water, and it will be unclean until evening. Then it will be clean. If one of them falls into a clay pot, whatever is in it will be unclean, and you are to break the pot. Any food permitted to be eaten that water from such a vessel goes on, it will become unclean, and any permitted liquid is such a vessel will become unclean. Everything on which any carcass part of theirs falls will become unclean, whether oven or stove, It is to be broken in pieces. They are unclean and will be unclean for you. Although a spring or cistern for collecting water remains clean. But any who touches one of their carcasses will become unclean. If any carcass part of theirs falls on any kind of seed to be sown is clean. But if water is put on the seed and the carcass part of there falls on it, it is unclean for you. If an animal of a kind that you are permitted to eat dies, whoever touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. A person who eats meat from its carcass and carries its carcass is to wash his clothes. He will be unclean until evening. Any creature that swarms on the ground is a detestable thing. It is not to be eaten. Whatever moves in its stomach, goes on all fours, has many legs, all creatures that swarm on the ground, you are not to eat them, because they are a detestable thing. You are not to make yourselves detestable with any of these swarming, crawling creatures. Do not make yourself unclean with them. Do not defile yourself with them. For I am Yehova your God. Therefore consecrate yourself and be holy. For I am holy. And do not defile yourself with any kind of swarming creature that moves along the ground. For I am Yehova, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. Therefore you are to be holy, because I am holy. Such then is the law concerning animals, flying creatures, all living creatures that move about in the water, and all creatures that swarm on the ground. Its purpose is to distinguish between unclean and clean, between the creatures that may be eaten and those that may not be eaten. How can we learn to love our Creator after reading Leviticus 11? I think we can learn an interesting fact that came to me as I was reading this is we can learn to be holy as He is holy by what we put in our mouth. We can trust that Yehovah knows what's best for us and what we should eat as food and what should be left alone. Aim to be clean not only physically but spiritually as well. If you're sick most of the time, you might think about listening to the laws outlined here. Be holy, set apart, as Yehovah is holy, set apart. Trust in Yehovah, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. Therefore be holy, as Yehovah is holy. How can we love others as Yeshua loves us? We can teach others to be holy, set apart, as Yehovah is holy, set apart. Bear one another's burdens. We can ask the Ruach HaKodesh to help us to be holy, set apart. Produce spiritual fruit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, humility, and self-control. In this Friday night Shabbat, with the Arianic blessing, Yehovah will kneel before you presenting gifts. He will guard you with a hedge of protection. Yehovah will illuminate the wholeness of His being toward you, bringing order. And He will provide you with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yehovah will lift up the wholeness of His being and look upon you and will set in place all you need to be whole and complete. Yivarichacha Yehovah, v'yishmirecha Ya'ir, Yehovah panav elecha, v'yichunechayi Yisa, Yehovah panav elecha v'yasem. Lecha Shalom. May Yehovah bless you and keep you. May Yehovah make His face shine on you and show you His favor. May Yehovah lift up His face toward you and give you peace. Shabbat Shalom.